the bold and the beautiful. The cost of devotion. It started as a quiet grief. A slow unraveling behind Donna Logan's smile. At first, no one noticed the way her hands trembled when she reached for her coffee. Or the way her gaze lingered a second too long on the empty chair in the Forrester living room. But inside, she was falling apart. Eric Forrester, her husband, her partner, her light, had collapsed in his design studio just weeks ago. The family called it a medical emergency. The press called it a scare. The hospital labeled it a cardiac event. But Donna, she blamed herself. The guilt gnawed at her relentlessly. She kept replaying every moment in the days leading up to the collapse. Every laugh, every skipped meal, every time she watched Eric push through pain, dismiss it, wave it away with a grin and a joke. And every time she let him. Not out of neglect but out of love. Because he insisted. Because he was Eric. Because Forrester Creations wasn't just a brand, it was his blood, his bones, his final legacy. And she didn't want to take that away from him. But now, as he recovered in silence, as machines measured his heartbeat and nurses whispered outside his room, Donna couldn't silence the voice in her head telling her she had failed him. Not as a nurse, not as a wife, but as the one person who should have seen it coming. Katie was the first to break the silence. She didn't mince words. You need to tell the doctors everything, Donna. Every symptom, every sign, every time Eric said something hurt. You need to be honest. Donna flinched. I am being honest. Katie wasn't convinced. You're protecting him. You always have. But this isn't about pride anymore. This is about saving his life. Or the next time, we won't be so lucky. The tension in the room cracked like glass. Brooke tried to intervene, but Donna stood her ground. You think I haven't blamed myself every second of every day since it happened? Donna's voice broke, raw and shaking. I know what I did. Or what I didn't do. I didn't force him to rest. I didn't drag him to the hospital. I let him keep working. I didn't want to be the one to take it away from him. And now I live with this, wondering if that choice almost killed him. Katie softened, but not much. Then tell the truth, because if you don't, and something happens again, we will be the ones who have to answer for it. It wasn't a threat. It was a sister begging another to stop carrying the burden alone. Still, Donna hesitated, because there was more. There was a moment, one she hadn't told anyone about. One that had been haunting her dreams. The day of the collapse. Eric had been working on a final wedding gown for a longtime client. A woman he had promised years ago he would personally design for when her daughter married. That day had come. The wedding was 2 weeks away. Eric had been determined to finish the final stitch himself, even as the pain in his chest grew worse by the hour. Donna had begged him to stop. Call the doctor, she had pleaded. He had smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, just one more seam. Just one more promise kept. He never made the call. And then he fell. Donna thought no one else knew. But then the security footage surfaced. A hospital administrator, reviewing surveillance near the studio entrance for insurance purposes, flagged it. A motion-activated clip showing Eric stumbling as he clutched his chest. Reaching for his phone, then stopping, then turning, walking slowly, painfully, back to the dress form, where the unfinished wedding gown waited. He picked up the needle. He stitched. 10 minutes later, he collapsed. It was all there. The choice, the sacrifice, the silence. The family gathered around the monitor as the footage played. No one spoke. Not at first. Katie's expression changed from anger to disbelief to heartbreak. Brooke covered her mouth. Steffi wiped away tears. Even Ridge, who had barely spoken to Donna since the incident, stood still, haunted. There was no one to blame. Not Donna. Not the doctors. Not the stress. Not the business. Eric had made the choice. Out of pride. Out of love. Out of a relentless devotion to his craft. When the footage ended, silence blanketed the room. What kind of man does that? Ridge finally said, voice low. A man who thinks keeping a promise is more important than calling for help, Steffi replied. Katie turned to Donna, tears in her eyes. You didn't let him down. But Donna couldn't stop crying. Because part of her still believed she had. Later that night, as Eric rested in the hospital bed, stable, breathing, but quieter than usual, Donna sat beside him and held his hand. You scared us, she whispered. He opened his eyes slowly. I had to finish it, he said. I know, she replied. But at what cost? Eric didn't answer. Because even he didn't know anymore. The dress had been delivered. The bride's mother had cried. The wedding went on. The world outside Forrester Creations kept spinning. But inside the family, a new question hung over them all. How far is too far when it comes to passion? Where is the line between legacy and obsession? At what point does devotion turn into self-destruction? No one had the answer. Not Ridge. Not Katie. Not even Brooke, who had seen more tragedy than most. Eric survived. The gown was perfect. The promise was kept. But the question remained. And in the quiet corners of the Forrester home, it whispered without rest. What will we sacrifice next in the name of greatness? And will we survive it? The bold and the beautiful. Ashes, ink, and inheritance. The Forrester estate stood draped in silence, heavy with loss and too many unanswered questions. The mourning for Eric Forrester was far from over, but the ritual had begun. The family gathered in black, voices hushed, shoulders stiff beneath tailored suits and hand-stitched veils. The patriarch, the architect of legacy, the legend behind the name. For all his elegance and stubbornness, he was gone, and the house felt colder without him. Donna stood at the heart of it all, pale and dazed, her grief stitched into every corner of her silence. Brooke flanked her like a wall of roses trying to keep out the storm. Ridge barely spoke. Steffi and Thomas moved like shadows, helping guests to their seats, but their minds were elsewhere. They were Forrester by blood, but their confidence was brittle. Then the doors opened, and the storm walked in. Quinn Fuller. No announcement, no grand entrance. Just the slow, deliberate rhythm of heels across marble. Her black dress was severe, her hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. In her arms, she carried a mahogany box. Urn-shaped, polished, and beside it, a letter sealed in an envelope with Eric's handwriting across the front. Everyone turned. Silence cracked. Donna's knees buckled. If not for Brooke's steady grip, she might have collapsed. Her lips parted but no words came. Just disbelief. Wyatt appeared almost instantly, jaw clenched. "Mom," he said low. "Not now. I didn't come for war," Quinn said calmly. "I came to honor the man I once loved. The man who changed my life. And to give him back something he never had a chance to claim." She stepped forward, gently placing the urn on the table beside Eric's memorial portrait. The photo. Classic Eric. Silver hair. Sharp eyes. Hand resting on a spool of silk. Watched the room like a ghost, still judging every decision. Ridge moved toward Quinn. Not aggressively, but with force. "What is that?" he asked, eyeing the urn. "His mentor," Quinn replied. "Albert Rosenthal. A man Eric respected more than almost anyone in this industry. He passed months ago. Eric asked me to safeguard his ashes, to one day place them beside his own. They were never just teacher and student. They were brothers. Artists who shared everything, including ideas." Her tone shifted, barely. "And this?" She held up the envelope. "Is Eric's final acknowledgement of that." Donna shook her head slowly. "Why are you doing this? Why now?" Quinn didn't answer her directly. Instead, she handed the envelope to Brooke. "I think it's best if someone else reads it." Brooke hesitated, then unfolded the letter. Eric's handwriting. Every loop and mark still carried his quiet dignity. "To whom it may concern. If this letter is ever read, it means I'm no longer here to explain it myself. Which is why I wrote it in the first place. I don't want confusion or legal snarling to poison my memory. What I built with love, and in some cases, I built it with others. One of those people is Quinn. Over the years, we created a series of designs together. Pieces that were ahead of their time. Meant to challenge the industry. We kept them private, experimental. We called the line EFXQ. It was never about the money. It was about freedom, two artists, two extremes, trying to find a middle ground. We made a pact. If something ever happened to me, Quinn would have the right to publish or protect that work. Not as an owner, but as a co-creator. It is not part of Forrester Creations. These are pieces outside the company, though inspired by everything we shared. Honor them, if you can. Or bury them, if you must. But don't erase her from it. She deserves better than that." Eric. When Brooke looked up, the room was split open. Steffi whispered, "Is this real?" Ridge took the letter and read it again. Then again. His expression never changed, but his eyes narrowed. Wyatt looked at his mother. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because it wasn't mine to tell," Quinn replied. Thomas, who had been standing in silence, finally asked the question no one dared. "What does this mean for Forrester?" Quinn turned to face him. "Legally? Nothing. Unless you make it something. The designs are separate. There's no conflict yet, but you're all smart enough to know perception is everything. If the world finds out Eric had a side project, one he created with a woman no longer part of this family, then yes, there will be questions. And pressure. From buyers, press, stockholders. And what do you want?" Ridge demanded. Quinn looked him square in the eye. "Credit. That's all. Just public acknowledgement that EFXQ was real. That Eric didn't create those pieces alone. That he wanted them to live after him. You can bury them in a vault, burn them for all I care. But don't whitewash the truth." Donna stepped forward. Her voice trembled. "You think this is the time? To walk in with ashes and letters and claims? At his funeral?" Quinn's gaze didn't flinch. You think I wanted this moment? I loved him once. Deeply. In my own way. But he asked me to do this. He made me promise. Katie entered the room, having heard enough from the hallway. There's going to be fallout, she said sharply. If we acknowledge this, it's a matter of public record. IP law will come into play. Every design he created in the last 10 years might come under scrutiny. Ownership. Licensing. Royalties. Brooke replied before anyone else could. And if we don't acknowledge it, she'll release it anyway. Quinn didn't deny it. I'm not looking to sue. I'm not looking to cash in. But I won't let you rewrite history. Not with his name. Not with mine. Ridge's jaw tightened. Then what are we negotiating? Legacy, Quinn said flatly. Yours. Mine. His. The silence returned. But this time, it was heavier. The air in the Forrester house no longer held grief. It held tension. Wait. A question that hung over them like the chandeliers above. What do we owe to the people who helped build us? Even if we no longer love them? Wyatt touched his mother's arm. Mom, if you push this, there's no going back. I've already gone, Quinn said quietly. I'm just making sure Eric doesn't disappear behind someone else's story. The meeting ended, without a resolution. But the echo remained. Over the next days, the board held emergency meetings. Legal counsel reviewed past contracts. Publicists debated whether to make a quiet acknowledgement or deny everything. Thomas and Steffi both leaned toward control, keeping EFXQ buried to protect the brand. But Brooke hesitated, because the truth was there. In Eric's letter. In his artistry. In every unspoken edge of his perfectionism. He had created something with Quinn. And in those final years, when he thought no one saw him slipping, he'd poured his energy into something beyond the House of Forrester. Something that made him feel free again. Brooke knew that look. Donna, heartbroken but clear, said it best in a meeting 2 days later. We're trying to protect his name. But maybe what honors him more is telling the truth about who he really was. Even if it's not convenient. Even if it's complicated. The family sat in silence. The decision hadn't been made yet. But the reality was clear. Quinn had lit the match. Now the house had to decide what to do with the fire. At the end of the week, the Forrester mansion stood quiet again. The ashes of Albert Rosenthal were moved to Eric's private garden, per his last recorded wishes. The urns stood side by side. A quiet tribute to the man who shaped Eric and the man Eric shaped in return. The press hadn't gotten the story yet. But they would, because nothing stays hidden in the world of the bold and the beautiful. Not love, not betrayal, and certainly not a signature stitched with 2 initials, EFXQ. And when legacy is on the line, truth comes with a price. Even if that price is everything.